Hey, welcome back to A Valiant Effort. It's Ted, and today we're driving a 2021 Honda Accord Hybrid EXL. Welcome to Josh in a 2021 Honda Accord Hybrid. So, just wanted to talk briefly about the standard features that come with this and the little technology stuff. Overall, it's pretty decent. It comes with some nicely equipped options. You know, you've got your Android Auto and your Apple CarPlay right off the bat, and it comes wired all across the board. This one is actually, we're lucky enough to have it wirelessly. I will say, however, a lot of issues with the wireless one that I've been experiencing personally. It might be because I've got an older phone or something like that, but I know Honda isn't the only one to experience the problems with their wireless connectivity. But once I plug it in with the wire, it's flawless. It works very well, and the screen pulls up. I think I've only had one issue when I've had it plugged in, and that was because it actually connected wirelessly and not wired, and then it did some weird override stuff, and I'm not 100% sure on what exactly happened, but I turned everything off and back on again like you should, and got everything back where it should be. So all right, so as far as tech goes in here, from my perspective, it's good. Apple CarPlay is really good. It's easy to connect, and the actual infotainment system itself is good too. It's very quick, easy to touch. It's very responsive. You've got hard buttons for all the things that you would want. You got a volume and tune knob. Yay! That's what we asked for, Honda. Thank you for giving it back to us, because as you saw in the Ridgeline, you got this dumb slider. And look, I know you have redundant volume controls on the wheel, but just make all the things easy. It's like, just because there's a redundant control doesn't mean it's good. Now, if you've got kind of those menus that have what's it called? Uconnect in FCA products, that's fine, because you got those, they're not hard buttons, but they're menu screens, so you just click between. It's kind of easy. You take a quick glance at the screen's really responsive, and boom, you're done. Everything else, just, it sounds good. The audio is a decent system in this one, especially. The rest of the touchscreen is very easy, very intuitive to use. I will say it does seem a little bit far for me sometimes to reach. It's just out of the way, but because of where I have to have my seat positioned, I'm sitting a little bit farther back than I know Ted was. The screen seems a little bit far away, especially when you're sitting in the passenger seat. As a passenger, it's harder to get to those buttons and knobs, but it has buttons and knobs, which is exactly what we want in all of our cars. So thank you, Honda, for keeping that alive. The thing this car has going for it, so we were talking about, does a car relax you when you drive it? Because as a daily driver, that's an important quality. Do you feel relaxed? Because when you're going on your daily commute, you don't want to feel stressed out. And, some cars, when they have, ridiculous locations for things, can be a little stressful. You're going on the road and you're like, how do I put my heated seat on? Well, this has a button for it. And it's got knobs for all of your major climate stuff. It's easy to read, easy to see, and I think everyone will get along with this. Anyone can jump in this car, I think. Now, I could be a little biased. I do own a Honda, but it's 15 years old in this. But anyone can jump in this and just do all of the things that they need to do without too much fuss, and I think that's good. And Ted was actually surprised to see that it has actual buttons on the radio. It's not just some touchscreen button option things, but they are physical buttons for home and back and phone and audio and source and your skip ahead and skip behind. Going forward, all of the buttons on this car really feel great, very tactile, and when you're trying to push them, and a lot of them give you a nice little audible click, and life is really good with those. My favorite thing that they've done, though, is actually on the steering wheel, where they put in a little, almost like a mouse scroll wheel that functions really well and clicks into place. It feels very good to go through a couple of different options and gives you a huge number of different screens that you can view
like next to your tack, even though it's not really a tack, you know, because we're in a CVT, but hey, it is what it is.
So the Honda Accord has a lot of good entertainment tech. CarPlay, Android Auto, and all of the screen responsiveness, visibility, all that stuff is really quite good. But if you're buying this car for a family, you may be concerned about safety. So what does the Honda Accord have in terms of safety technology?
The adaptive cruise and this, what's it called, lane keeping assist on this is really not bad. I mean, we drove a 2018 Ridgeline that the lane keep assist was garbage. Don't use it, don't touch it, it sucks. This, you go ahead, we'll show you a little clip. You hit the button and, you know, you set your follow distance for adaptive cruise and all that, and then you just, it steers. Granted, it's not, you know, it's not a self-driving system, so you shouldn't be allowing it to steer on its own. You should still be steering, but it kind of moves the wheel. It will steer on its own if the lane lines are good, but you should still be steering.
Overall, though, I think they did a really good job, and it's surprising how effective it is at its job, because it's really just there for assistance. It's not there to be an actual self-driving thing. So I think it goes above and beyond its call or its role in this particular instance.
But what it does is it allows you to put your hand on the wheel like this and just kind of relax, and you don't really have to put any effort into turning the wheel because it's helping you turn. And I like that. That's nice for a 1,000-mile trip. I'm sure Josh will mention that, but even just the, 20, 30, 40 miles I've driven it, it's like, I'm into it.
I've put probably about 1,200 miles on the car at this point, because I was fortunate enough to have the ability to drive it out here to see Ted and Nick, and I used the lane keep assist for a lot of time on the highway just to see how it would handle and what it would do, and it does really well on highways. It's almost to the point where I feel like I'm in like a level 2 system or semi-autonomous, like, just for, curiosity, I basically tried not to steer at all, and the car would take over and follow the lines very reasonably, and keep me in the lanes when the weather was good. I did notice a flaw when it was raining or when there was fog. It wasn't able to find the lines as well. So I think that's a problem maybe with the camera system, but it is what it is. When it comes to safety, they've done well. This car is equipped with blind spot monitoring and lane keep assistance and adaptive cruise control, all which work really well. The high beam, it has automatic high beams, which work really well too. I will say though, when you get into some fog or some rain, now all of a sudden things don't work as well as they should. And so I think that's just a problem with, the sensors being blocked and not being able to see as clearly as they need to function properly.
So the Accord Hybrid has some really great safety features, and they actually work, which is more than we can say about a lot of the cars that we've tested in the past. Some cars have safety features and they can actually make you less safe. Now, as for performance, the Accord is definitely not a performance monster, but what were you expecting? It's a midsize sedan hybrid.
When it comes to things like cornering and stability and just general responsiveness of the vehicle itself, I'd say it does well. It's a midsize sedan and it's a hybrid, and it doesn't take off like a V6 or anything like that. It's got good pickup, but it's not amazing. Who's really going for that? Like, who really thinks, I want a Honda Accord hybrid and it's going to be my sports car? If you're thinking that, you're probably in the wrong neck of the woods, or you've been driving a tractor for the last 20, 30 years. I don't know.
Talking performance, this is not, you're not going to buy this to be a performance car. You're not going to get any type of real driving joy out of it. Though I will say, and I think that this is important to note, even though I think most of you who are going to be in the market for a hybrid aren't wanting to, go down a back road, but it's got some nice, the steering's nice. It's very direct. you can't feel what the front wheels are doing. So, that's what kind of makes it not the most sporty car in the world. I don't know what the front wheels are doing right now, but I probably look drunk. But the car itself goes exactly where you point it. You turn the wheel, it's very precise, it's pretty, there's not a lot of on-center vagueness.
Not very sporty. It looks really sporty. Not as sporty as it looks. But it corners well. I've had no problem on the back windy Connecticut roads, following the speed limit and taking those corners at speed. And there's no slip, there's no nothing. The car just hunkers down.
It's not dull. I'm not falling asleep. This corner is pretty sharp, and I'm not going very quick, but it controls itself really well. Again, no one's taking this on a back road to go have a good time, but it's not bad. It's not bad.
I think the battery pack being underneath the passenger or the rear passenger seats really helps. Just like most electric and hybrid cars, it brings down that center of gravity, really hunkers you into those corners, even with the front wheel drive.
The braking, so I'll hit the brakes right now. It's got this kind of heaviness to it, which is, all well and good. It's very predictable. Throttle's the same. So as far as transmission goes, it is a CVT. That saps a lot of the fun right out of it. But you know what I like about this? It's a CVT and it's not ashamed of it. So here, I'll throw it into sport mode. Ooh. And I'll just kind of hit the gas. It does that thing where it just holds the revs like a CVT should. Why are we programming gears into CVTs? That's kind of silly, is it not?
And it's not trying to hide the fact that it's a CVT. So I'm cool with that.
So if you're buying a hybrid, you really shouldn't be expecting a whole lot of performance unless it's a 918 or a LaFerrari. This is not about performance. This car has enough power to get you by, but it's really geared more towards efficiency. If you want power, you should definitely step up to the 2-liter Accord Sport, which has a ton of power, especially for the price. So what you're buying this car for is really a comfortable daily. So how does this car do on that front?
So besides performance, let's talk about what you're really buying this for, which is the daily driver elements. So this car, mileage-wise, it gets about 48 combined. That's quite good. 47, 48. And Josh has averaged even a little higher than that. If you drive over 70 on the highway, the EV motors don't kick in by themselves ever. So you have to be going 70 or below for that to happen. That's how you get the best efficiency in this thing. As far as comfort goes and seating position and everything, it's perfectly comfortable. Now, I would argue that the seats are not as soft as my Accord, but also this has 6,700 miles. My Accord has 225,000 miles. It's different, we can all agree on that. My seats have been broken in. These really probably haven't yet.
Lumbar support for days, which I know Ted will probably rant and rave about if he remembers.
But they're comfortable, and you've got a ton of lumbar support. It's actually pretty crazy how much lumbar you get in this car. So much so that it's like, oh, okay, maybe too much.
But both the front driver and passenger seat have that, and it's like, like I said, I drove about 1,000 miles, almost all in one go, over 2 days, and I was comfortable the entire way. And I didn't have any problems. It's very comfortable. It does make a really fun noise when it's in electric mode, though. And the best way to describe it is that it's like you have a choir, like a choral noise in your engine block, like singing a chord. And the first time I heard it, I was very confused. And then, my dad was like, oh yeah, by the way, that's the noise it makes in electric mode to let people know that you're coming, I guess. I don't know.
Also, so if you go and you throw yourself into EV mode, so EV mode on now, you can watch your little thing as long as it doesn't go into the power band. You've got this cool little gauge here. You're just driving on EV power alone. And you can't accelerate very hard. You got to watch that little meter. Otherwise, it'll kick the gas engine on. But it's pretty nice. And something relaxing about EV mode. The engine's off. It's very quiet. I like it.
And of course, as usual, they have the giant, blockade that folds down below the radio and everywhere just to get your little cubby down here, which the cubby has 2 USBs, one for charging, one for hooking up to CarPlay and Android Auto, and then another, it's got a 12-volt outlet, so you can still plug in your old-fashioned car chargers and get a good charge off of that, which I like using that for my phone sometimes, but I also like to have my phone plugged in for Android Auto, so, we'll see. As far as the rest of the interior, they did a nice job blending the dash into the bottom half of the interior with almost like it's a very fake but nice looking, like ebony wood kind of grain thing going on there.
The way that you go into drive and reverse and all that stuff is very intuitive, because it makes sense to me to pull back for reverse and to press a button for drive instead of a button for each.
The heated seats are wonderful. However, level 3, so you push the heated seats on and it gives you 3 options, and it's like 3 lights, 2 lights, 1 light. 3 lights is the most, 1 light obviously is the least, or well, I guess 0 lights is the least. But regardless, 3 lights, way too hot for me. I feel like I'm burning myself up. Probably great for somebody who gets cold a lot. I don't get cold a lot. I just like having my butt warmed. So, level 2, when it was really cold outside, I was using that a little bit. But for me, it's mostly level 1, heating there. That's a nice, comfortable zone. And like right now, it's like 36, 40 degrees outside. I've got it turned off because I don't need it. I will say though, there's a dimmer switch on this side for the brightness of the dashboard. And it actually does impact the brightness of the backlit screen on the main screen, which is a great feature. Love that they've integrated that. I also love that there's a button on the screen to adjust what the screen does and when. Like, is it in daylight mode? Is it in night mode? Is it completely off? There's a very quick, convenient button for that. 10 out of 10 there. It's also really easy to turn off all of your safety features, your lane keep assist, your parking monitors, all that stuff. There's a button down here on the bottom of the dash, right by your knee, that brings you up the menu on the screen, allows you to scroll through, deselect and select those options to turn them on and off.
So this year, we're introducing a new scoring system. We've got 5 categories, and we're going to do a video about how the scoring system works. But basically, it's technology, entertainment, technology, safety tech, performance, reliability, daily drivability, and price. And today, we're really only going to focus on, we'll post our scores for the car, and you can check that out. But today, we're really only going to look at price compared to the competitors in class and some out-of-class competitors.
In the mid-size sedan category, obviously we're not including European vehicles that are above and beyond this price point. We're trying to keep it within price point. So we would actually consider the Honda Accord, the Kia K5, the Sonata, the Jetta, the Camry, the Legacy, the Altima, and the Mazda 6 all to be within this price point. The only ones available with a hybrid, and we did have the Accord hybrid in case you didn't already realize that, are the Camry, Accord, and Sonata. A few pros and cons of each of the 3 hybrids are, in terms of the Camry, we think that it is, well, we don't really think it, it's just fact, but it has the best miles per gallon of the bunch at 51 city and 53 highway. That's actually pretty impressive that there's a 2 mile per gallon difference. This is probably the most reliable hybrid drivetrain, just given the length of hybridness that Toyota has done. Obviously, the Prius, albeit a piece of crap 15 years ago, has come a long way. Okay, and I've driven one. So, Camry cons, it's actually the least up-to-date tech-wise. It's a pretty bad base, and the top trim is kind of mediocre. But the top trim is also only $33,000. So, I think maybe the top trim is kind of like in the XL, which is what we drove. Some Honda pros would be it has the most power.
The Accord also has probably the best driving dynamics of the 3, but also has the biggest range of price. So really you could go from one of the most base specs to just about every bell and whistle you could get on a Japanese or Korean midsize sedan.
The Accord cons are the worst fuel mileage of the bunch, which is kind of ironic because it gets 48 and 47, which is still pretty freaking impressive. and the most expensive top trim is $37,000. Now, finally, the Sonata Pros it has the best standard safety features. It's nicely equipped. Top trim is $35,000. However, the Sonata also has the least power. Quite honestly, if you're looking at one of these cars, power is kind of irrelevant because none of them are actually going to tickle your jellies. And only the base model gets 50 miles per gallon /54. The SEL and the Limited get 45 and 51. I don't know why that is. Teddy probably does.
So Nick is right. I do know. It's just because I Googled it. It's really just 16-inch wheels versus 18, I believe, because the Camry has the same thing going on, where the LE gets better fuel economy than the XSE and other trims. So yeah, it's really just a wheel package. So if you put smaller wheels on your limited trim Sonata or your XSE Camry, you should get the same fuel economy.
But he's not the one recording this. Some potential slightly out-of-class price competitors would include the Hybrid Insight. The top touring trim of that is actually $29,000, and that includes literally everything. It gets 55 miles a gallon. The rear legroom is the same as the Honda Accord, and the headroom is 6 inches less, which actually is quite significant. I wouldn't want to sit back there. And it only has a few feet less of cargo space, which is also pretty impressive. The Prius, nowadays, it's actually maybe a price category below the Honda Accord, maybe a little bit smaller. The top trim of the Prius is actually only $32,000 and is 54 miles per gallon. For $29,000, this actually gets you a model with most of the options that people are going to want. And it actually has an available electric all-wheel drive and L1 Eco, and that actually does 58 miles per gallon, and it's only $24,000. Now, personally, if I'm going with a hybrid, I think I would go with a Camry. I think they might look the best. And the other piece of this is, if I was gonna buy one, anything that's front-wheel drive to daily drive, personally, I think I'm going to go with the Volkswagen Jetta. I find them to be, albeit maybe a boring, look, which is true. They look kind of meh. But you get a sport trim, $24,000 out the door, plus taxes, so it's really not $24,000 out the door. But for 24 to 25 grand, it's going to get you digital cockpit, a really nice MMI system, great gas mileage. It's still front-wheel drive, which is the same as any of the other vehicles we're looking at, minus the Super Legacy. And I think it has probably the most standard options.
So the Honda Accord Hybrid is a really solid choice. Maybe it's not as durable as the Camry or as tech-heavy as the Sonata, but it's a solid mix and it's not even that bad to drive. The EXL seems to be the best valued trim at only $6,000 above the base. The Sport doesn't really get enough extra over the base for $3,000, and for the additional $3,500 from the EXL to the Touring, we also just don't think you get enough extra unless you really have to have ventilated seats and an OEM nav system. So should you buy the Honda Accord EXL Hybrid over its rivals? Yeah, it's not bad. Go get one. Hey, thanks for watching. Check out the channel for more Should I Buy videos, DIYs, and that upcoming podcast that is actually coming out next week. Thanks for watching.